Trek Geeks is proud to have Fansets as our presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com. Fansets. Our pins have character.
Hi, this is Gates McFadden, who played Dr. Beverly Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation, and you're listening to the Trek Geeks podcast with Bill Smith and Dan Davidson.
From the What the Hell Are They Thinking department at Podfleet Command, it's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant, the flagship of the Trek Geeks podcast network. Greetings to you, Trekkies, Trekkers, and Trek Geeks all across the galaxy, and welcome to the Trek Geeks podcast. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith, and this is episode number 310. So excited to be here, and my excitement now shall wane as I introduce my co-host. Yeah, here we go. Here we are. And I apologize on behalf of his ancestors, his descendants, his friends, his family, and anybody that's ever interacted with him, whether online or in person. But he's the other half of Trek Geeks. Dan Davidson, everybody.
You know, when you do that, it just makes me more happy to be here. So I'm really happy right now. Hi, pal.
Hi, Pally. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to see you. It's good to hear you. God, I wish you'd do more NPR. But anyway, it's happy to be here. 310. We're already our second episode into the year, so we're really doing pretty good as episodes go when you look at last year. So congratulations.
You know, we are 25% of the way to our episode total from last year.
Yep.
We're killing it.
We are.
We are killing it.
But I've been looking forward to this discussion since we decided what we were going to talk about this episode. So, yeah, we're going to deep dive on a Next Generation episode that is making Fansets a buttload of money because they have about 765 deltas that have already come out for it. And that is the the 8th episode in Season 4 of Next Generation, Future Imperfect. It's going to be fun. I love this episode.
Before we recorded, I was going to say to you, we should just call it Future Imperfect the entire show and not say a word.
I would
no,
like
but
that.
now the joke's out. You know, I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny.
We weren't going to even acknowledge it.
Oh, I see.
You know,
we can start over if you want.
No, it's no.
It's funny because I did did I do that before? I did a Future Imperfect Farkism before, so I
knew you had.
Yeah, so I got a great one though, just to whet the appetites of those listening.
Do you?
No, it's really bad.
310 episodes in, I find it hard to believe that there's a great Farkism in my future.
Farkwheel was good. You admitted it. You liked it, so.
Well, it's because it's as bad as the episode. That's really the key to that joke.
Okay. All right. I gotcha. You got me.
I remember seeing the tease for this episode, the week before it aired, next time on Star Trek. Yeah. And thinking, whoa, what happened to Riker? Uh-huh. And this episode doesn't disappoint if you base it on that tease. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This has always been one of my favorite TNG, at least season 4 episodes. I love this. There's so many great things about this episode. So I'm very excited to talk about it, to be honest with you.
I love it at the end of the teaser when, Frakes wakes up in sickbay. He's got that look on his face and he just sells it.
He does.
Anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. We are very excited. Dan, Trek Long Island coming up in just over 3 months. I think we're 101 days out.
Yeah.
I am so looking forward to this convention. It's really our first big East Coast show. We've done TrekConDoroga before. We've done Northeast TrekCon, which was a nice little small convention. But this is shaping up to be a huge one. And I'm so excited to be part of it. I really can't wait. I feel like it's the perfect appetizer before we get to STLV later in the summer.
Yeah, I agree. This is something that I've been looking forward to ever since, we started having rumblings about whether or not we were going to go. Of course, we heard that the first one last year was a tremendous success. And they've just added on to the guest list for this year's event. And the thing that I think is so cool about Trek Long Island 2 is that it is very podcast centric.
Yeah.
They've got a ton of different podcasts that are going to be there to meet the fans and meet the stars and do all kinds of things for the entire weekend. So I really think it's going to be a lot of fun for not only the people that are going there to go to a convention, but for us who are going there as podcasters. I think it's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to it. And even though you're flying up to Manchester to drive with me to New York, I'm still looking forward to it.
It's going to be a great trip because our road trips are just fun.
They always are. They always are.
We hope to have an announcement about a very special episode of Trek Geeks that hopefully we'll be doing at Trek Long Island. Everybody cross your fingers because it definitely is going to prove to be a fun one. But as soon as we have that news, we will absolutely let you know. But, whisper to the great bird if you wouldn't mind, because we'd love to make this one happen. It's going to be
absolutely. It's going to be great.
Dan, in the meantime, you and I are going to step away to do a little business with America and match game 76. We'll be right back.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Dan, of course, we always want to take this moment to thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of Trek Geeks.
Yeah, we absolutely do. It's one of my favorite parts of the podcast, buddy. We get to talk about new pins from Fansets, and I guess you could say that this is the part of the show where I get to say, pin alert. We got to put some sound effects in there or something. No? Yes?
Let me talk to the engineer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Speaking of new stuff, they continue to release new stuff all the time. They got some great new Trek pins available right now at fansets.com, including the beautiful Vulcan IDIC badge available in both pin and magnet form. James Kirk, the new version 2 design, as they're calling it. Dr. Miglimo from Lower Decks, great Bird of the Galaxy kind of spinoff, maybe? No, not at all. And not at all. Speaking of Lower Decks, though, buddy, Captain Freeman is the latest in the beautiful line of the universe of Trek pins. Glitter, of course, is included. Also, additionally, the USS Stargazer from Picard is the latest in the XL Master Ships collection. And not to be outdone by size, the Klingon mini insignia is now available, too. And this may be my favorite one of all, buddy. The Delta from the animated series is now available in both pin and magnet form. And dude, it looks fantastic.
Well, and Dan, we should point out that size does matter in this case. Lots of new releases this week, Dan. So everyone get yourselves on over to fansets.com. Grab all of those great new pins, including those TAS Deltas, because I can't wait to get my hands on those. And then at checkout, be sure to enter the special discount code TrekGeeks for 10% off your entire order. That's Trek Geeks in all capital letters with no spaces. And of course, don't forget, when you spend more than $30, you will automatically get free shipping in the US.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks.
Well, buddy, here we are. We are going to talk today about the 4th season episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, one that we just sort of picked off the cuff last week, and that is the fantastic Future Imperfect.
It is fantastic. I love the episode. I'm glad that we're doing it, and I love the reason why we're doing it. It was the 8th episode of season 4. It was written by J. Larry Carroll and David Bennett Karen, and directed by Les Landru. A fantastic job, great direction, great acting all around, good storyline, good special effects. All around a really positive, one of my favorite episodes of season 4, actually.
I love how you called him Les Landru, like he was from TOS.
Oh, I did.
Return
Landau.
of the
Sorry,
Archons.
Landau. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. You know me. I mean, you can't go an episode without it. So there you go. Les Landau. My apologies.
Yeah.
Landru.
I'm sure he's listening. And regarding the writers, I'm like, as soon as you're reading those names, I'm like, who?
Yeah. I have to say the same thing. Yep, absolutely.
And I guess it's just it's a great example of how people outside the writing process can come up with really fantastic stories, or at least outside, the main group of writers that we know at this point in TNG, can come up with great stories that really just sort of, seem like the Star Trek we know and love throughout the decades.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is one of those ones that really hits it just right. It's not too bonk on the head with stuff, but it makes you think a lot, and I think it's really great.
It's a little bonk on the head in a couple of ways, and I think we're going to get to that in just a bit. I think there are some questions that we have as this thing goes on, but there's so much good stuff here.
So it'll be interesting for me to see what your bonk moments are. I think it'll be kind of neat. I just think it's a great episode all around, and got to give props right up front. First thing is Jonathan Frakes. He does a great job in this episode. It's some classic Riker lines, classic Riker maneuvers, and all of the little subtle things that you see for differences and what's going on. They really pull out all the stops from making it feel like it's really the future. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Of course, even with great episodes, that I'm going to dig on some stuff, and I can't wait to, because I got a few things to dig on in this, but I still think we're going to have a great conversation.
Well, and it also doesn't mean that we hate the episode. I mean, I think it's...
Not at all.
I think that it's being honest to say that, the things that are weird about the episode are just weird, or at least don't work. And it's okay to admit that stuff and still love, what we're seeing and what it means for the characters. I have to agree with you about Jonathan Frakes. I mean, if you think about it, this is one of the first episodes in season 4 where we get to see, the full Riker experience, if you think about it. He's had some episodes before where he's been featured prominently, quite a number of them, but, I really think that we get a sense for who Will Riker is as an explorer and a captain to some level. But more importantly, we kind of get to see what he would be like as a father. And I think it draws a very clear distinction between him and his dad, Kyle.
And isn't it interesting that we already talked about this a little bit, of how that whole experience as a father and what we know with what we saw in reality in Star Trek in Picard season 3, as he is a father and has a daughter and has suffered the loss of a son. I look back at this one with a little bit of nostalgia, seeing how he was acting with who he thought was his son, who was probably in close to his teens, and missed a lot of his life because of this memory issue. But of course, we all know that's just a ruse. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, the first thing I have to say is that I have a really hard time believing that Will Riker can't play that note in that song.
I was going to say, that was something I was going to bring up, but yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's right at the...
Wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, and every time I hear that song, all I can hear is Thomas Magnum singing it on Magnum PI, like, look at me, I'm as helpless, and it just, every time I hear that note and he messes it up, I'm like, he is a better trombone player than this. Come on. He was going to play night.
It's not a hard note, I don't think, and I don't even play the trombone. So, but that is a funny part, and it's kind of neat how that comes back in the middle of the episode when he's learning how to be a dad with Jean-Luc, the boy, not the admiral.
Jean-Luc the boy. Is it
Jean-Luc the boy.
Is it a little weird that he's named his kid Jean-Luc, theoretically, in the future? Or that Barrage figures that he'd name his kid Jean-Luc? Because I think it's weird.
No, I didn't really think it's weird. I mean, they've had a great relationship. He looks up to him. No, I didn't think it was strange at all. Now I do because you brought it up, but I didn't think of it before. So thanks, dummy.
This is what I do. These are the questions I ask on Trek Geeks, Dan. And honestly, these are the kinds of insipid questions you're not going to hear on any other podcast. I just want to make that clear. The other thing I want to call out right off the bat is, as soon as we jump sort of 16 years into the future, after the fog envelops us and Riker wakes up in sickbay, in the future, did we forget how to make hair look good?
I love his hair in that scene.
Well, I mean, the gray streaking is a little weird, but Beverly's wig is terrible. Diana's wig is terrible. Picard's grown out hair in the back is completely unlike Picard. It's like
that's true.
I'm waiting for him to turn it into a ponytail as soon as he can. I feel like we kind of regressed on hair and maybe, dipped into the TOS vault from the 60s for some of those wigs.
I don't disagree. That is especially Picard. Picard's the one that always stood out to me. I love the beard, but the hair was kind of like, dude, you're gonna if you gonna part that thing over like you do when you're missing half your hair on one side of your head or whatnot. Before we actually get too much in detail, man, we should probably give a quick synopsis of this episode, like there's anybody who's not seen this yet.
Well,
right?
You sound like just the person to provide that.
It's going to be very quick. So basically, there's an away mission on Alpha Anais 3. Riker, Worf, and Geordi are down on the surface, and they're in a cave, and it gets really foggy, and they're trying to beam everybody out. Everybody gets out but Riker. He passes out as he's coughing. Not very good cough acting, by the way. I will point that out right now. He wakes up in sickbay. Things are a little weird. Beverly tells him that he has been in a coma, and he's got a disease where he has now lost all of his memory from the point of that passing out, which was 16 years ago. So he has woken up 16 years in the future, has no recollection of any of those 16 years. And during this episode, he finds out that he had a wife who died in a shuttle crash, a son who was alive. Picard is an admiral working with the Romulans. Deanna is working with Picard. He is captain. Data is first officer, and they are on the verge of a treaty with the Romulans and Ambassador Tomalak, who we have seen, of course, in other episodes of TNG. The computer doesn't work very well. He starts getting suspicious. All of a sudden, he finally figures out that something's not right when, oh my gosh, the video of his wife is Minuet, who is a hologram, so something's not right here. He calls everybody out. It turns out that Tomalak and his Romulan clad of baddies captured him and have him in a giant holodeck. But no, that's not it either, because his son Jean-Luc makes a mistake and calls Tomalak Ambassador Tomalak, and Riker says, okay, I'm not playing this anymore. And it turns out that Jean-Luc is actually the cause of this entire ruse on the planet. He is an orphan by himself with incredible technology around him, and he made this ruse so that he would have someone stay with him. Riker figures it out. They get back on board, and they get everything straightened out, and they beam back to the Enterprise together. What a happy ending for the alien known as Barash. And it's no future. There is no imperfect future. There is no imperfect future. It was just a big fantasy. The end.
It was a lie.
It was a lie. It was a lie.
It was a lie.
And but a well done lie.
Yeah, no, admittedly so. I mean, here's one thing I want to know. We've seen so many episodes of Star Trek to this point. This is 1990 when this airs. We've seen 3 years of the original series. We've seen 3 full years of NextGen. We've seen 2 seasons of the animated series. And why is it that so many alien races that are incredibly powerful lack the presence of mind to pick up on fine details?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now I got to admit, Barash extrapolated some great things. I mean, he changed the comm badge. He made little changes on the Enterprise to show us that it was different. And in the future, the hair, okay. But, little things like Minuet, for example, who we first see in the first season episode 11001001.
Nice.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you. You'd think that they would know that she wasn't real, even though she exists in Riker's memory and he had genuine feelings for her. You think that if they're able to probe that out of his brain, that they would know, maybe not that. You think they picked Deanna as Imzadi?
Exactly. That's one of the things I was going to bring up. So thank you very much. Yeah. His love for Deanna has always been there. It was more of a fantasy with Minuet, the way that he acted with her in that season 1 episode. And it was kind of nice to bring back the same actress to play her for the 4 seconds that she was on screen in this episode. But yeah, you would have thought that if that mind probe, I don't want to call it mind probe. That's not the right. The mind.
The scanners.
The scanners would have picked that his real true love and was his Imzadi Deanna and worked with that. That would have helped with some of the mistakes. I did like how they wrote that whenever he went what they thought would be off script or what Barash thought would be off script, the computer had lag. I kind of liked that aspect of it. It was very interesting to see Riker get frustrated by a 2-second lag. Obviously, he's never had a 2600 baud modem in his life. But one thing I wanted to bring up with regards to Barash, and we're going to kind of jump around the different things and not in really sequential order, but we were talking about Barash. Whatever happened to him? Riker took him off of this planet that was set up specifically to protect him for the rest of his life. And we'll get into that in a second. But they beam up all happy. My name is Barash. And then they go, yay! Never heard from again. You never see him on the Enterprise. You never hear him talked about. Riker never says anything, never sends him a subspace message saying, happy birthday, Barash, my old little buddy. Nothing. You never hear from him again. It's just a perfect example of week to week on TNG. It's like that could have been, he could have beamed up to the ship and Worf still had a broken spine. But we never hear about both of those again either. So,
Well, at Mission Log once talked about, he's with Jeremy Astor and the puppies and, every other sort of hitchhiker that the Enterprise D has ever picked up.
Right.
They probably get dropped off at the nearest starbase. They wind up going through this sort of debrief and / condo sales pitch on why life in the Federation is so fantastic. And then they get to go along their merry way. But the whole idea is that Barash didn't want to be alone. And now all of a sudden, once he leaves the Enterprise, he's, wait for it, alone. And that's really weird to me.
It's sad.
I mean, I love the ending of this episode. Don't get me wrong. But if you break it down and dissect it, we have to assume that, Barash, met a friend, maybe Riker had somebody at Starfleet. No, but I mean, maybe there was somebody at Starfleet who decided they would act as, Barash's, person.
Yep.
I don't know, but there's no context given to that. What would have been great was a closing log entry.
Yeah.
Because you remember right after that scene, the Enterprise just sort of impulses off into the stars. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have provided some of that context that we lacked. The Enterprise is on its way to Starbase, blah, blah, blah. And, where, Barash will meet Dr. So-and-so and learn about life in the Federation and have his choice of where to go. Something along those lines. It really struck me as weird.
It was weird, and it was a little sad. The other thing with regards to the planet on Alpha Onias 3, I'm surprised I can say that correctly each time, and don't think that I didn't try to get a FARC out of that. It just wouldn't have worked.
I'm surprised you haven't called it Jackie Onassis 3, quite frankly.
Well, the day is young. This is a very powerful amount of technology being used to protect this one being.
Yeah.
His mother obviously was high up in something and needed to protect her son and built this unbelievably incredible, powerful technology that could read someone's minds and thoughts and build an entire environment out of it, making the person believe they were really in it. What race is this? Where are they? What have they done? Where have they gone? Is there a benefit to being friends with the Federation? How much of an enemy could they be? There are so many questions that are opened up with this one alien race that we never know.
You know, the last time we had a youthful person come on board an Enterprise, you know, because he seemed okay, it was Charlie X. I just want to throw that out there. And look how that turned out. But I mean, admittedly, Riker has no idea this kid's capabilities. I mean, the scanners can create this entire environment through him, you know, to make Riker feel like he's on the Enterprise. It had the sights, it had the smells. You know, we know this now because Riker says so. But we have no idea if they're not, you know, if they don't feed on the souls of sentient beings. What do they eat?
Exactly. You know? I mean, just looking at that alien face, who knows what they could do? That's another thing. Bug face.
This is going to be the last thing that bugs me about this episode before we get into the things I really, really love. Yeah, that was actually unintentional. That is not my favorite makeup / costume piece in Star Trek. Mm-hmm. It looks it looks really stereotypical. You know, aliens came and hauled me away for, you know, for exploratory tests and probed me kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I expected different, because even Sarjenka in season 2 looked interesting.
Exactly. It was like this was kind of a shortcut. And they wanted to introduce an alien that was extremely powerful or had the technology, extremely powerful technology. So they really wanted to make them look different. And in doing so, they made them look like Roswell.
Yeah.
Right.
That really is the best descriptor of it. It's, I mean, for all the great aliens that have been created, you know, by Michael Westmore. I mean, the dude has an Academy Award, if I'm not mistaken. I would have thought that there would be something that looks a little less Roswell, quite honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, me too.
That for me was really the biggest letdown. I mean, if I'm looking at it in the scope of the episode, it's a super minor thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, but when I watched it again, just last night before bed, I'm like, really? Because this episode is so good.
It is. It's fantastic. I love this episode. It's so great. But there are always things that you can pull out and talk about. One of them, which is the biggest one for me, and it's such a small one, but I've been itching to talk about it with you. I told you that I had a couple things that I wanted to talk about at this episode. Let's go back to season 2 and Shades of Grey for just a moment.
Oh, yeah.
What a wonderful episode.
Actually, Riker, I really like Shades of Grey.
It's not bad. It's flashback episodes and the story's compelling enough. But what's interesting is in Shades of Grey, he gets stabbed by that tree thing or bitten or whatever it is that happens to him, and he's up in sickbay, and they got the probes going into his mind, and he's laying there on the hospital bed, and he's got this nice shiny blanket on him, and he looks like he's in the hospital, and everything's great, just like you would expect when you're in sickbay.
Totally.
This episode. Great opening episode, by the way, when he looks at his reflection and he sees the different comm badge and he sees his hair has changed and he's got white in his beard. Fantastic scene. Absolutely fantastic. According to Beverly, however, he has been in a coma for days after he had the symptoms of this disease. He's still in his uniform. He's been in a coma for days, and they didn't take him out of his uniform and put him in a sickbay bed with a blanket and maybe hospital blues, like one of those things that you tie in the back and you're hanging all out of it all the time. He's got his captain's uniform on still. I understand it's for the shock of seeing that awesome badge that Fansets is making $1 gajillion off of. Sorry, Lou and John, I'm just going to teach you about that forever. But, that's just something that's always been like, what's going on here?
I have seen this episode conservatively 50 times. never once has it dawned on me that Riker should be wearing a Johnny. A space Johnny.
Yeah.
Never once.
That's something every time. I'm like, every single time somebody's in sickbay and they're there for a long time, even in TOS. Kirk's in there for a couple of days. He's not in his uniform.
He's in the sickbay scrubs, yeah.
He's got so Captain Riker's been in there for I think it was 8 days?
10 days, I think.
In the 10 days in the same outfit. Yum.
Just stewing.
Yes, exactly. I think that's one of the funniest parts of this episode, and it's not meant to be. I understand the shock value of what's going on there, but it's just something that I've always found is hysterical.
As far as a scene goes, the scene is blocked and staged incredibly well. You know, when you get that look where he sees himself in the mirror, and then the camera comes around, and you see his face, it's like, oh, wow, what the hell is going on? You're right. It is the scene as it exists is fantastic, but they want you to see those 4 pips, and they want you to see that different comm badge. But you're right. He's been stewing in the same Starfleet issue for 10 days now, and it's got to be smelling lovely.
And as far as I know, we don't see him change because he's always walking around with people, getting familiar with everything. He's never really by himself.
Well, then he's touring around the ship. In the same,
exactly.
He's probably changed by then. There was a commercial break.
Yeah. So yeah, that's always something that I've found quite funny, and have been waiting to talk about. I love how the subtle things that we've talked about. I love the Admiral uniform that Picard has. I really like that futuristic look. I
cool.
love that. I love that there's a Ferengi on the bridge. I thought that was good. I would have loved. I don't think we've really gotten too much Cardassians by then. Maybe a little bit, but even seeing a Cardassian on the bridge would have been really cool. But just the Ferengi was awesome, and he even makes comment about that, which is good. Of course, one of the tropes I guess we could talk about with the bonk on the head is, oh, okay, Worf has a scar on his face. Okay, Sulu. Okay, whatever. But
I don't get why he's practically hunched over the console. It's like he's typing in the pin for his ATM card.
And why is he not in security? What happened?
He's the operations manager now. Data promoted up, which means Worf was the next to promote. So he got Data's spot.
I bet you he
Data's
probably wasn't
officer.
happy about that. Ugh, I wouldn't have liked that. I would have wanted to stay up on the horseshoe, baby.
Well, it's not the first time, Worf has had to potentially take that role,
Yep.
Because it gets talked about another time. But I like the fact that the Enterprise is familiar enough, but different enough where you can obviously tell it's the future. But I have to tell you, the one thing I love about this episode is the fact that you see LeVar Burton's eyes. Finally.
Very nice. Not fake cybernetic implant eyes.
Yeah, not just the whites of his eyes because he's blind, but you actually get to see LeVar's eyes, and it's fantastic because that's one of the defining characteristics, that people remembered about him from Roots were just his eyes.
Exactly.
They cut right through you in a lot of those scenes in Roots. In addition to his amazing performance, it's amazing to think how young he was at that particular time. But when he turns around and you see his eyes, you're like, "Damn,
whoa,
that's cool!"
Absolutely.
And they had a great explanation for it, and it makes me wonder, why couldn't that happen?
Absolutely.
Why can't we just clone a pair of eyes and put them in?
Yep. Speaking of scientific technology, I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to put it out there anyway to you.
Yeah.
So in one of the episodes, Baby Jean-Luc, we'll call him Baby Jean-Luc just for just a better term, is playing Parisi squares. He could break his neck. Great scene. He's got a broken wrist. One thing I love about the future in Star Trek is you can have just about anything happen and just a little with one of the devices, and you're going to be fine.
A little
Why
what?
does Worf still have a scar?
A little what?
A little. Yep. I know because he's Klingon and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that could have been gone in like 5 seconds.
I have to believe that it was the type of injury that a dermal regenerator would be unable to repair, possibly. Or Worf wanted the trophy.
Worf wanted the trophy because they could have fixed Martok's eye and scarring in Deep Space Nine, and he chose not to. So I don't think just a little scar like that would be a dermal regenerator issue.
Worf gets a new goddamn spine. Granted, later. Later.
Yep.
But you mean to tell me? But we keep going back to the little minor problems. I want to really focus.
Which is what's so fun.
I know, but I want to focus really on the things that are really fantastic about this episode. Yes. Or else people are going to think we're dogging on it the whole time, and we're really not.
No, not. Oh yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to have that at all. Nope, not at all.
Riker looks, even in his state where he's lost 16 years of his memory, he acts and feels like the captain of this Enterprise, and
he does.
And Data looks really good in red.
So great. First time we see him in red, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, because we don't see him in red again till Chain of Command.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. Or what about Parallel? So I can't think. I think that's later. So yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I gotta say, I looked for that red Data action figure from Playmates in the early 90s.
They had it?
Everywhere. Oh, it was one of the least produced ones. There was a limited stock run of them. And if you got one, it was immediately worth like about $200. But I wanted that red Data. It was so hard to find. I went to every toy store in the Metro Denver area at the time when I lived there. Couldn't find one to save my life. It's like the white whale of Playmates action figures from the 90s.
That's cool.
It looked good. I mean,
yeah.
I think Data looks good in red, quite frankly.
He looks very good in red, and that's one of the things also that I like, because you don't catch it the first time you're watching this episode. In that 2 seconds, you don't catch that he uses a contraction. And that's when Riker really starts catching on that something's not right. But before Riker's like, "What did you say? You said can't." I thought that was great how that scene unfolded. I really liked it. But yes, you're right. Data looks damn good in red.
I'm still trying to figure out a good reason for Deanna and Picard to be on board the Romulan ship without the treaty being signed. Perhaps it's a goodwill gesture. Perhaps they were just along for the ride, but I don't know. It's a great reveal. I love the fact that, Riker's like, "Red alert,"
shield up,
typical Frakesian style. But, when they come on the view screen, it's like, you would think that we were already allies at that point. I would love to have had more detail around why.
Right. Well, here's one of the things that I find interesting about that, because I've thought about that also, and it's not a dog. Again, we're not dogging it, but I've thought the same thing. They make it very clear throughout the rest of the episode how important Riker was in all of these negotiations. And even if he was in a coma for 10 days, you would think that he would have been much more heavily involved in these treaties, except for however it was at the beginning, all through this time when Picard supposedly was doing it, and then just for the final signing of the treaty. Doesn't make sense. Even though people say, well, he went in a coma and he was sick and they didn't know if he was going to have his memory. That happened only 10 days ago. I'm sure that this treaty had been going on, the negotiations, for a long time.
I think part of this is the flaw in Barash's story. I think that as the scanners try to put this stuff together, it's like, well, what would make sense here? And perhaps some of this is not intentionally based upon shortcomings in the script, but perhaps the writer's interpretation of what Barash would have put together in the mind of a child.
Yeah. Yep.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like that a lot. One of the things that's interesting is, I think because of Star Trek, I always say schedule now instead of schedule. But whenever we see Riker, when he tells Picard to shut up, which is a great scene when he says shut up, as in stop, shut your mouth, stop talking, and Sir Patrick's
like I do with you.
His reaction is great. Exactly. And then he walks up in front of the view screen and says, shall we end the charade? And I'm always like, damn, it sounds like he should be saying, let's end the charade.
Yes.
But he does. One thing I did not know until doing research for this discussion was in the trailer for this episode, they use him saying it that way. but in the actual episode, they use a different take where he says charade.
See,
that's incredible.
I thought so, because I could have sworn I remembered him saying it that way.
Yeah.
You know, and then when it gets to charade, I'm like, well, maybe I'm just, assuming that's the way it would have been.
I wonder if in earlier, when it was first aired, maybe he said charade. But what I've been reading is that it was in the the trailer. He says it, but it's kind of interesting. I saw that because I always picture that in my mind and hear it in my head that it's charade and not charade. So thanks, Captain Picard.
Well, sometimes when they cut those promos together, I'm sure that the episode isn't necessarily locked at the time.
True.
And they're running with the best footage they have. And maybe it's the kind of thing where somebody just took the wrong take and put it in the promo reel.
Quite possibly. Or took the wrong take and put it in the actual episode.
Sure. I'll buy that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think charade would have been kind of neat to be in there for real.
It's interesting that they're both delivered almost identically.
Yeah. True.
It is. Both are solid as far as takes go, but, one just, I think charade sounds better, quite frankly.
Takes? 2 takes, Rakes?
Maybe it was 2 takes.
Maybe it was. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I also like how one of the things I like is we have continuity in this episode, but we also have continuity later in this episode, even though this didn't really actually happen. Because in parallels, the comm badges look really similar to these.
Oh, they do.
Which I thought was kind of cool. That they kind of brought that back. I mean, they got a whole bunch of them in the dressing room backstage. You might as well use them, right?
Well, it's one budget item they can cross off because they already have a bunch of these extras.
Exactly. Yep. There's just so many great things about this episode. That's great. But it all comes back to Frakes for me. He commands every scene. Usually he commands every scene anyway, but he commands every scene in this episode, and he does it with forcefulness when it needs to be there. He does it with compassion when he's on one-on-one with baby Jean-Luc. He does it with, concern and being kind of afraid when he's talking one-on-one with Deanna on what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to act and what if he never gets these memories back. Frakes does a fantastic job and running the gambit of all the emotions in this episode, all for naught because it never really happened.
Right. Well, you figure, when he's aboard the future Enterprise, this is a Riker who's having to assimilate a lot of brand new information, but still pretend like everything is really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I got to play it cool for the Romulans. All right. Oh my God, I'm a father. Oh my God, I'm the captain of this ship. Oh my God, I don't remember the last 16 goddamn years. It's the way that that Frakes sort of portrays that, because you can tell inside he's bewildered, but on the outside he's Riker.
Right. He is, and he does a good job of that in a way that is not diplomatic.
No.
Because when he first meets Tomalak, he's got concerns. And when they're walking down the corridor, and then especially when they're turbo lift, the looks and snarkiness of his comments is really not becoming of a captain, because he's just not sure what's going on yet. And I think that's another great example of how well he did in this.
No, but it is Riker.
It is definitely Riker. Absolutely. I'm surprised they didn't punch Tomalak.
I love the twist in this episode where Riker figures out the charade. And, it essentially, the scanners and Barrage turn it into, well, it's a Romulan experiment to try to extract the location of Starbase 28 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. That was so brilliant.
Yep. And charade number 2.
Charade number 2. What a great way to keep Riker in it than to make him think that he was in a simulation to try to compromise Starfleet security.
And one thing I really liked about that is when that came to be, when he thought that he called the bluff of Tomalak in the first charade, and the image of the bridge dissolve. The special effects kind of look a little dated when you can tell it's a green screen, but then when they show the Romulan, in quotes, holodeck, which is gigantic, I love the fact that way up in the distance there's Romulans walking around.
Yeah.
I love how they did that. And that actually was the set of the Borg ship from Best of Both Worlds. And they redressed it to make it look like a Romulan holodeck. But I loved how that little special effect, you could actually see people back there walking. It gave it depth, even though it was kind of a dated special effect.
Yeah, and perhaps they needed something larger than a simple holodeck simply because of what they were extracting from Riker's memories.
Right. And the memory like CPU and memory that was needed for something like that.
Yeah. Well, and then the way that, first I got to say Andreas Katsoulis, returning as Tom-LUC, the great actor from Babylon 5, from The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, where he plays the one-armed man. Just so many great character portrayals by him throughout the years. But, the way his character just sort of says, oh, she wasn't real? Yeah, we messed that one up. Jeez, we'll have to get that ready and then, better in the next revision. Paraphrasing, of course, but it was just like, wow. Well, good for you. You figured it out, man. Yeah,
we were give him
totally trying to scam you.
Got to give him credit, too, because I said it before in past episodes of Trek Geeks. The wardrobe in TNG is awesome. Love the Starfleet uniforms. Those Romulan uniforms look like the most friggin' uncomfortable things ever. They are so pointed. And the one scene where they're walking down the corridor for the first time, we really get a close-up of Tom-LUC walking with Picard and Riker's behind them. That sleeve looks like it could cut through metal as he's walking down the corridor because it's just so like, whoa. Give him credit for wearing that thing. That thing looks awful.
It looks like they took some of the old solar panels from Skylab after it fell back to Earth and said, what can we do with this? I got it. Let's make the Romulan uniforms.
And it's funny that's, for some reason, that became a thing on TNG to make the Romulans pointed in ways that we never really saw it. Uniform points, ridge points on the forehead. Of course, their ears are pointed, but that's just something that seemed to take off with the Romulans in TNG, which carried all across all the way through Picard. So
I'm glad that the part of the charade that took place at the Romulan installation, wherever the heck that was, didn't last very long because I think it was the less believable of the two. Like all of a sudden, here's a weapon. All of a sudden, here's a crawl space. I know this place to hide that they don't know, but yet there's this grate where you can see right out into the hallway.
And you can hold it with paper clips.
But all very, if you think about the times when you're a kid, right? And you pretend that you're in this world of whatever show. Like, let's say you're playing Star Trek outdoors with your friends. You come up with these sort of half-baked things that make perfect sense to you when you're 8 years old. But when you're 35 or 40, it's like, what the hell?
Yep. It also makes me think of the times where you've done something wrong and you try to come up with a lie to keep the story sounding like it's real.
Yeah.
And as a kid, it's just far-fetched. And you're listening to a kid as an adult and it's just far-fetched, but the kid feels like it's real. And I feel that was kind of happening when he saw things starting to unravel.
Yeah.
More so than when Riker discovered that the Enterprise thing was a farce. When he started discovering that the Romulan prison was a farce, then you kind of started to see some really weird excuses and things take place. I do love the way that Romulan disruptor weapons work.
Yeah.
And the special effects on that for this episode were pretty cool. Stormtroopers need those things because you can't miss with those, it seems. At least when Riker's firing.
Well, because that scene is in the episode promo too, and I remember seeing that and going, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So the scanners do a really good job of trying to stay a couple of seconds ahead until you give it a challenge. And then every now and then it just gets something wrong. Almost perfect, but not perfect enough. And we're kind of back to that discussion point that I brought up at the beginning. That was like, for this amazing race, where there's apparently just this one kid left. And I don't know how the hell that happens, but that's a story for another time. The fact that they would get so many of these details almost is pretty good.
It's pretty good, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
I it's funny you talk about how he might be the last one. I really can't imagine that he's the last one. I have to go with the mindset that he was the last of the family that he was in and was hidden where he could never be found by the mother who has since been killed or whatever. This race has got to be out there somewhere. I can't believe that with this technology and this futuristic way of doing things and the power that they have, that they could have been wiped out somehow.
No, but we have to at least consider the possibility, right? For all we know, kind of like, It seems like kids wind up in the weirdest positions in Star Trek because, Sarjenko was alone on a planet that was falling apart. Don't know where her family was, whether they left her behind. So, well, you just stay in your room, But this kid left with these scanner things in the middle of the rocks. No semblance of help coming. We don't know how long he's been there.
We don't know how long he's been there. Has he ever gone outside the cave?
Don't know.
To see where he's at. I mean, that's what I talked about earlier. There is so much there to build on. And I don't want to call it a missed opportunity, but it never came up again ever in the slightest way. And that's a little sad because you could have a whole, not that I'm talking out of my ass right now, but you could have a whole spin-off on something like that. If you wanted to, if you really wanted to put the time and detail into it. But it was interesting that we never heard anything about them, never got a name for the race, never got another word from Barash or what happened to him. Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be one of those mysteries that, comes to our brain whenever we see this episode. It would have been great if this were covered in a novel, or even a comic book series, to sort of get some more meat around, what happens to Barash or where he came from in the first place.
Right.
And whether or not he goes back home, because we have to assume this isn't his home.
No, it didn't sound like it was. It sounded like he was hidden there by his mom. So I don't think it was his home. If it was his home, it's a pretty drab home, just a big cave.
And why hidden?
Yeah, that they kind of play on that a little bit about how his mother's enemies were looking for them, but that's it. That's all you hear. I mean, what was she, a space pirate? Was she the head of the government? Who knows? Well, sadly, we'll never know. It's like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
3.
The world will never know.
3.
To-hoo. I don't know where that came from.
That's what they tell us in the commercial anyway.
It is. That's a cute owl too. I like that. Anyway.
So, I mean, all in all, if we're stack ranking the top 10 Riker episodes, this one's in there.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say it's in the top 3, top 4, maybe.
Really?
Oh, I love this. This is Riker at his best. I mean, you got Frame of Mind. That's probably number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really think of anything else, but this is a strong Riker episode, and I think the reason I'm so passionate about it is because not only is it a strong Riker acted episode, it's a strong written Riker episode.
Yeah.
When you get strong writing, strong acting, strong directing, how can you go wrong? And all of those things are in this episode, which is why it's one of my top ones for season 4, if not the entire run of the series. I love this episode.
It's also the second time in this particular season 4, where he gets to be the captain.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because he starts
whether it's real or not.
Yeah, he starts the season that way. And then by episode 8, it's like, just put another pip on him. It'll be fine.
Yep, absolutely. Way to go. Way to go, Frakes.
For me, I have to think that Best of Both Worlds 1 and 2 are up there for him just because of what it means for him.
I would say for what it means for him, yes. In terms of a Riker episode, I've never really put it up in the top ones. I mean, I understand there's a lot that he has to deal with. He's got to become the captain, like on the fly. He's losing his friend. And there's a couple scenes when he's dressing down Shelby that are really strong, but it's not the whole episode. This is the whole episode. This is all Riker all the time in this one, and I really just love the way it's done.
I'd argue that part 2 is almost an all Riker episode.
It is. Yeah, that I'll give you that. Yep. But unfortunately, and I hate to say this because it's probably going to piss people off, the second part of the Best of Both Worlds doesn't hold a candle to the first part, in my opinion. It's still great. The ending is it's never anything that I've really loved of how it ended and putting him, sleep and all that stuff. But so that maybe that takes it away from me looking at it as much of a Riker episode as I should.
I'd like to put you to sleep.
So I do not doubt.
And Dan, I love talking about these episodes.
Yes.
Because I think ever since Picard season 3, these episodes of Next Generation kind of hit a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more to admire and love and really just sort of enjoy about some of the, I guess they're classics now. I mean, let's just be honest about it. We're that age.
Yep.
But they're, in a way, I'm going to say they're even a little better than the first time we saw them.
I don't disagree. I think that's one of the things I love so much about what Picard season 3 did. The additional layers of all these characters that a lot of people grew up with. We didn't necessarily grow up with them because we're older, but a lot of fans grew up with TNG. So to be able to have that additional layer of what's happened so many years later, seeing them all together again really makes these special episodes that are some of our favorites from TNG stand out more. And I don't disagree with you at all. They're even better now.
Yeah.
How that's possible, I don't know, but it is. And they are. And it does. And we do.
I have to agree with all of that. It's the first time you've made sense this entire episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I say that in contrast to the episode I'm about to hear about. Because we want to thank our friends, the band 5 Year Mission. And that usually means you go on some sprawling, incoherent babble fest about some mirror universe episode that you've seen that has to do with the band.
Goodness gracious.
So let me just say before you get to that horrifying piece of Trek Geeks,
ouch,
that we love 5 Year Mission. We really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just lip service because we play their music. We are, not only are we huge fans of this band, but we consider them friends.
Mm-hmm.
Without them, this show would not sound the way it does. And I think that their music is perfect for what we do. So it's an honor to showcase their music every week. It's an honor to be their friend. And believe me, if you go out to 5yearmission.net and get all their CDs, you're going to love what you hear. I guarantee it. So that's 5yearmission.net. Go get those CDs.
I'm going to go off on a little tangent before I do my very important announcement that I usually do at this time. We have a new listener who we've talked about before. Her name is Carly. I actually talked to her today, and she was talking about how she's been listening to our episodes, and she says, because of you guys, I am going out and I am getting the 5 Year Mission CDs because awesome. I love their music. She loves what we do. She loves the intro the best of Trek Geeks. And I said, yeah, all of their stuff is great. They got a new one coming out. So there you go. She's going to have some CDs in her hand, just like you always say. She's going to get the physical media. And I think that's fantastic. But now on to more important things, Bill. And
so, on to your pedantic psychobabble.
I like that. It's no surprise. You know that I love Lower Decks. I have since the beginning. It's a great addition to the Star Trek universe. The animation, the humor, the humor is so great. Mike McMahon and his team have done just a fantastic job. Like that 3rd season episode, you remember this one, Boimler and Mariner are assigned to be at the Starfleet recruiting booth on Tulgana 4. Tulgana 4 shows up all the time in Lower Decks. Anyway, Boimler loses his mind when a smug drummer keeps mocking him, and then he goes crazy in front of everybody at the job fair. Yeah, so Bill's just having a blast with this. More importantly, in this episode, though, we find out exactly what happened to Rutherford and why he had his implants put in. But the mystery does remain as to who exactly was responsible. It's a great season 3 episode, buddy. It's Reflections, and you got to check it out. You won't forget it, even though I just did.
I have a serious question for you. Why are you the way that you are?
My mommy made me the way she made me.
First, I want to have a bone of contention here.
Oh boy.
I think it should be Refarctions and not Reflarctions, because Flark isn't his name.
Did I There's the one mistake of the episode that I always talk. Yes, Refarctions.
310 episodes.
Yeah.
Personal conversations with Fark.
Oh, yeah.
And you got his
cease
name.
and desist orders, everything.
A trial.
Yep.
And you got his name wrong.
I don't know if I would get his name wrong. I kind of, the real universe episode, Reflections, I just, for some reason, it happens. Every once in a while, this incredible Einstein-like mind has a little skip of the beat, so to speak, and I just typed the extra L in there. It's all good, though. People know what I meant. You did.
The dinosaurs had brains the size of walnuts, and I think that that's infinitely bigger than what you have going on upstairs there.
Refactions. Yeah. There you go. Thanks for the correction. I appreciate it.
So, but yeah, back to why are you the way that you are?
I don't know. It's 9 years of doing podcasts with you, I guess.
I hate everything you choose to be.
Oh my God. I'm your friend, Bill.
I'm stealing right from The Office. I just want you to know both of those lines. Those are all directed at Toby, the HR guy.
Oh, gotta love Toby.
No, you're my Toby.
Oh, wow.
You're my Toby.
That hurts. I haven't even gotten all the way through the series, and that hurts.
Are you any further along than the last time?
Couple episodes, yeah. Couple. Yeah.
Dude, that was August.
No, it was more recent than that.
We were traveling.
Oh, since then I've watched. Since then, yes, I've watched.
What
several
season are you in?
Since then, end of 4.
You were at the beginning of 4 in August.
That's the whole season, baby.
Why don't you just pause Grimm for a little bit?
Okay. So now we got to go off on another tangent. I'm sorry, Refarctions. We got to go on another tangent. We finished Grimm the other day, and I'm very disappointed and sad.
Why? You've watched it like 100 times.
Because we can't watch it anymore. It has become my all-time favorite show. It has knocked Lost off the top of the list.
Why can't you watch it anymore?
We can, but it's sad that it's over and we have to start over again. Because I wanted to watch Office, but you just gave me permission to start over again, so we're going to start over again tomorrow.
I didn't give you permission. You said you can't watch it anymore. That implies that you're not able.
No, it's sad. It's such a good show. I'm going to start a Grimm podcast.
Good. Maybe it'll get your ass off this one. That's 5yearmission.net. Go get all their CDs. Of course, don't forget that you too can support Trek Geeks by joining us on Patreon. You know, Dan, we've got a Patreon watch along coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Which you probably got an email about that you didn't read.
I did.
That the watch along was actually selected by one of our Patreons.
It really was. I'm looking forward to it. It was Helen, wasn't it? Helen?
It was.
We're going to have that watch along. You did send me the email. If I remember correctly, I did click on yes maybe it was just to add it to the calendar and not to let you know that I would be there, but I did click yes. I will be there. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good time. I don't remember the date at all, which is not unlike me. But I'm sure that it's in my email and I'll find it and I'll be there and it's going to be a great time. We're going to be watching The Immunity Syndrome, which is a fantastic episode of TOS. Absolutely. And then we're going to be watching Macrocosm from Voyager. So a twofer right there that same night. It's actually, I have it right here. It's Sunday, March 3rd. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
And it's going to happen on our Discord server, so any of our Patreonicals can take advantage of it, or you can join Patreon, and among the various and sundry perks, you can watch Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely, and have great discussions on the side. There's a lot of good reasons to become a Patreon of Trek Geeks. Right now, we want to take a moment, though, and just thank our associate producers for Trek Geeks because we so much appreciate every single one of them, and they are Vikram Bhatt, Chad Clark, Corey Clay, Brad DeMag, William Edward M. Jr., Brandon Everidge, Andy Flark, Kimberly Francis, Jonathan Hamilton, Ryan Jeffs, Sean Lynn, Rick Mason, Jamie McGregor, Ross McKinney, Aaron Mollenkoff, Sarah Ledoux, Helen Reed. We're going to have that watch party because of Helen. Sarah Rutlinger, Tim Robertson, Desi Rogers, Greg Rozier, Eric Sakian, Adam Sanders, Tim Serdar, Heather Sohn, Blake Strike, Lisa Tomlinson, Ron Roble, Kaylia Zawacki, and the gracious and wonderful Connie Hutchins.
Wow, you made it through that entire list without messing it up once.
I am peeing my pants right now. I'm so happy.
That's just because you're old. Let's not pretend it's anything but. We also want to thank our Trek Geeks producers for their support. They are Mike Bovia, Steve Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Andy Davenport, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Brian Hackwith, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Lionel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Jim McMahon, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Casey Pettit, Jamie Rogers, Casey Shafsky, Terry Shull, Jim Stoffel, Chris Trebuzio, Christina Werther, and the lovely and talented Jess Vashon. Dan, the senior producer for now and all time, is the terrifically terrific Jude Tatman.
The Tatman, the Tatster, the one and only. Love the guy. You too can become producer of Trek Geeks. It's so easy to do. So easy. And then you can watch the watch party if you join it. Head on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks for all the details.
Dan, next week we're planning on starting more serious discussion, but I'm calling it audible.
Oh, wow.
I'm giving you something that's not in the copy.
So the furthest thing away from serious discussion.
The furthest thing away from serious discussion. Okay. So originally we were going to start our mental health and Star Trek, series. I'm not ready for that.
Okay. That's okay.
Next time on Trek Geeks, Dan, we're going to do an all outtake episode of Trek Geeks. Now, this is not pre-recorded. This is not, outtakes from previous episodes that you've heard.
Yeah.
You and I are going to sit down and record a fresh episode of Trek Geeks that is nothing but an outtake.
Wow. That's challenge accepted.
See,
it should be fun. Are we going to have to bleep No, we don't bleep anymore.
We don't bleep
we're not
anymore.
Have to worry about that. Okay.
No.
Wow, this is going to be interesting. Come to think of it, a lot of our discussions are pretty much outtakes, so it should be pretty good. Yeah. I'm up for it. We did 20
minutes this week without even batting an eye. I'm pretty sure we can get an hour out of this.
Wow. So you heard it right here, folks. Live, in color, or not, because you don't really watch it. You listen to it in your ear holes. It's going to be the all outtake episode next time on Trek Geeks. The Flagship.
If I really wanted to throw a wrench, I'd tell you we were doing it live on YouTube, but I'm not doing that to you.
That's not a wrench that I feel like catching.
I'd love to throw that wrench at your face.
I know you would.
Maybe in the future we'll do one of those on YouTube.
Okay. The far future.
And because that means people can always throw comments and questions as we discuss things, which is fun.
Yeah, it is.
But for this time, it's just you and me and our microphones, and fun and frivolity will ensue.
If that's what you want to call it. Looking forward to it.
All outtakes all the time here on the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. And now this is how podcasters with some degree of stature roll.
Right.
No, it's not.
This is how empires fall, is how they actually, yeah.
This is how empires are built, but fall is more like it. Of course, Dan, for more great Star Trek discussion, we want everyone to check out all of the shows here on Trek Geeks. I have to take my hat off to everybody on the network, because in the last year, actually in the last 4 years since the start of the pandemic, they have all worked tirelessly and put their hearts into their shows and brought content that is just amazing. Yep. And while some shows are taking a break and some shows are still producing, each and every one of them has been an important part of what we do here at Trek Geeks, and we love them all. So, please check out the shows because there are great Star Trek fans out there putting out great content under this banner, and we'd love for you to discover them.
Could not say it any better than that, buddy. Absolutely. Trek Geeks. No one, that could be good or bad, no one talks Trek like we do.
Certainly not in the next episode. And of course, for all the news on all the Star Trek, please visit our great friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode number 310 of the Trek Geeks Podcast. We do hope you all live long and prosper. Coconut! Wow, that was short.
I've done a regular one in a long time. I felt it was time.
Well, it's because I did NPR today. I got it.
That's true.
Your favorite.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com, or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Bing bong, Dan.
Oh, God.
Welcome to the 2024 version of NPR for Star Trek. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith. Today we're going to have a rousing discussion on the episode of the television series Star Trek The Next Generation, which, by the way, ran from 1987 to 1994, syndicated across the world. An episode called Future Imperfect. Dan, as the co-host here of Trek Geeks, I'd like to know your thoughts. What are you saying?
Huh? What? I'm sorry. Are we live? Oh, sorry. I was taking a nap. What's up? Hi. What's up?
You talk in your sleep, Dan.
Wow. I do.
Dan.
What were you saying? I didn't catch any of that.
Dan, it wouldn't be a new year if we didn't have an NPR segment.
Okay. And we have. Yay. Okay. So it's a new year. Congratulations. Great segment, Bill. Good to see you, buddy.
It's not over yet, Dan.
Damn it. See what I have to put up with, people? I don't know. What did I do?
What do you put up with? How many times were you here last year?
There he is. Hey, pal.
I want you to know I hate your guts.
Oh, that's not nearly as much as I hate yours. But it's good to see you. It's great to be here.
Hey, we are almost a third of the way to our entire episode count in 2008.
I know, right? And we'll get there.
Pretty soon.
We'll at least make 9.
At least by the end of October, we should hit it.
I'm going for it. No, it's yeah, and I got to tell you, ever since it's funny how we decided to come up with what we're going to talk about. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a fun discussion. Of course, you've already listened to the discussion, all you 12 people that listen to the podcast. So why am I even saying anything about it?
Oh, the Patreons haven't heard it yet.
Well, that's true. I mean, they're important. They're very important.
For those of you who don't subscribe to Patreon,
yes,
they get the raw audio of this recording, and the outtake, what you're hearing now, is actually what we record first.
Yep, first thing.
So it happens before we actually get through the actual episode discussion at all. So the patrons are hearing this in the order in which we record it. You will hear it as it is edited and assembled in its correct show order.
Yes.
So as you hear this non-Patreonical, we've already talked about it, but the Patreons are getting this live and uncut.
Yep. And through the magic of Bill's wonderful editing, this gets moved to the end, and the 1 or maybe 2 mistakes I make are edited out, so you never hear it. So yeah.
I think there's really only one time I've edited out a mistake of yours.
You love leaving them in.
Well, but I mean, actually people ask me about this every now and then, right?
Yeah.
Like I got asked about this in Vegas. It's like, why do you leave all that stuff in? It's like, well, if you and I are at a bar, or at STLV, for example, if we were having a discussion about Star Trek, that's the way the discussion would be.
Yeah.
The idea is that our listeners are, the proverbial fly on the wall. Not that there are any proverbs about flies on walls. So please don't at me. But, it's that kind of thing. Yeah. The people listening are part of the conversation in that sense. So when you make a mistake, when I make a mistake, it's in.
You don't make mistakes.
Oh, I've made plenty of mistakes. Asking you to be the co-host of this fucking podcast.
Big mistake right there. The first one. Boom. I mean, you couldn't get any worse than that one. So
no, I could
count after that, right?
No, I could because I keep coming back. 310 times.
310. Ooh, 310. Yikes. It's crazy, isn't it?
Your face is crazy.
Crazy. Don't want to sing though, because Spotify and all that stuff. But I could have. I might have.
So I have an update for you.
Oh,
speaking
good.
of Spotify,
updates are good.
Last time I talked about a new podcast I was launching.
Yes, you did.
We released this episode.
Mm-hmm.
The Monday following that, Spotify announced that they were ending the ability to cut music into your Spotify podcasts.
Oh, no.
So this takes my entire podcast idea, which was golden.
Yes.
And kind of takes me back to planning stage because I was ready to start going.
Oh, man.
So I'm so pissed.
Spotify, you're stupid. But thank you for letting us be on your platform.
Thank you. We submitted our show.
That's
they didn't allow us.
That got accepted.
We were one of the first Trek podcasts on Spotify.
Yes, we were.
Submitted through Libsyn.
Yep. Very exciting when that happened. When you told me that, I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Yep.
We were trailblazers, baby.
Trailblazers. Portland Trailblazers. NBA. No, not at all. Not even. Are they still around? I don't even know if they are.
I have no idea. Did you know that there's a team in New Orleans called the Pelicans?
I do know that.
I didn't know
from
this.
Somewhere else. Did you also know that, sorry to get into sports, people, but last night was the NBA All-Star game, And
Was it?
same thing. I don't watch it at all. But there was a lot of complaints that the All-Star game now is just a farce and they don't play defense and it's just an offensive, contest and see who does what. The East scored 211 points in the game. And they won by like 30.
211?
211. Highest scoring game in the history of the NBA.
Was LeJon Brames playing?
I don't even know. See, I don't have any interest in I don't like the All-Star game for any of the sports because it's just ripe to get some great person injured for no reason at all.
That's a reference to The Office that I was making.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you then.
It's a deep cut reference. I freely admit it.
Okay.
If you're
Can you
a
repeat
casual,
it again?
LeJon Brames.
Oh, okay.
If you're a casual watcher of The Office, you probably
It had to be Michael Scott who said that.
No. So
Really?
here's what happens. Daryl, the warehouse supervisor, he likes to mess with Michael on occasion.
He does.
And Michael asks a question about, I believe it's Michael who asks a question about LeBron James. And Daryl, messing with him, goes, "You mean LeJon Brames?" And Michael's like, "Yeah."
I like the guy who plays Daryl. He's funny in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Craig Robinson is
Great
hilarious.
movie. Hot Tub Time Machine 2, one of the worst movies ever made in the history of mankind. But Hot Tub Time Machine is one of our go-tos when we're looking for something to watch. Craig
Robinson is great on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He has a recurring part. He also has a series on Peacock about, it's a comedy. And it's about a guy trying to start a business selling saw palmetto berries by capturing and killing pythons in the Florida Everglades.
What?
Yeah. I have to look up the name of the series.
The genius of writers, because who would have ever thought of something like that?
It's a funny show. I like it a lot.
Wow. That's nuts.
You wouldn't think it would be
or
great.
Or berries, maybe.
Oh, it's called Killing It.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on Peacock.
All right. There's another one that when we were, what was it? When we were behind the scenes for Trek Talks 3 back in January, everybody was talking about, and Frakesy was talking about, was it The Bear?
The Bear on FX.
Everybody says that that's fantastic. I haven't seen it yet, though.
Kelly and I tried an episode, and we were like, Now, maybe we need to give it more, but everyone that I have heard talk about it has just raved about it.
Yeah. It's
so
like
maybe it's me.
It could be. Yeah. But it could be just a slow pickup like WandaVision. Everybody was saying how great WandaVision. You got to watch this. My nephew was going crazy. First episode, soon I watched it, we're like, this is awful. But the first episode was supposed to be like that. It got way better. The series, it was actually, I really liked how it went. But that first episode was, if you're not a fan of like I Love Lucy or that kind of television, it was not making it for me.
I love that kind of television.
Yeah.
But I bailed because I had no interest. That was the series that made me realize I don't need to watch everything Marvel.
And they really haven't done anything good since then.
No, well, honestly, if you think about it, a lot of their flagship characters already have movies and were part of that first couple of phases of the MCU. I don't care about Ant-Man. Yeah. I don't care about some of these other characters. I think the characters that have had standalone films that have done well, Iron Man, Thor, Black Panther, I think that those movies should do well and have. There's plenty of movies that I really don't care about. Doctor Strange. I'm sorry. I don't care.
I was never a big Doctor Strange comic book collector fan, but because I collected all kinds of Marvels when I was younger. I do like what Benedict brought to the role, but he's not one of my favorites. I did like what he did in the Avengers movies. And the second one with him, with Wanda, I did enjoy. I'm just not as much into the Marvel stuff as I used to be with, now that the, Endgame came and went. But I'm very excited for the Secret Wars movie that's supposed to come out in a few years. If it's anything like the original comic book series called Secret Wars, because to this day, it's the best comic book series I ever read. It's fantastic. And I hope it's something like the comic book.
Okay.
But we'll see.
That's fair.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, people were hoping that, the whole Thanos storyline would be as good as.
Yeah.
you know, the comics. And as somebody who never read Marvel growing up, I can only believe that it was based on the reaction to it.
They did good. They actually had a kind of at least one Easter egg that I know of in Avengers in Endgame when Thanos blows up the Avengers compound and Hulk is basically holding up everything on his back to keep the whoever's with him. I forget who's it, Rocket and Ant-Man or somebody with him. That's a direct takeoff of an issue of Secret Wars where he's literally holding a mountain range on his shoulders to keep everybody from being crushed.
Oh wow!
So it was and that's it's like one of my I can still picture the cover of that episode of Secret Wars in my mind right now of him holding up the mountain range that I think Magneto dropped on them. I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
That's like this new announcement for the new Fantastic Four movie. Mm-hmm. As much as I like Pedro Pascal, I could not care any less. This will be the third iteration of Fantastic Four.
Is it 3 or 4?
As far as I know, it's the third one.
Okay.
There were 2 movies with the first cast.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
There was the second grouping.
Yep.
And now this new group, I still don't care.
I think the reason that they're doing it is because those other ones weren't done by the Marvel studio that's now under the Disney umbrella. So I think that's why they're doing it. Because I'll tell you what, the first one was I didn't even see the second. Oh no, the second one was with Silver Surfer with
Doug Jones.
With Doug. So I did see that one, but the remake, I think I only saw the last 15 minutes. I'm like, what? I didn't even know what it was at first. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvel Talk brought to you by the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
You're right. We're going all over the place. Let's talk about the Muppets next.
Your face is all over the place.
Wow. Okay.
I really don't care about the Muppets. Because I'm not 7 anymore.
Wow.
I mean, I love the Muppet Show growing up. Beyond that, I really don't care.
The Muppets are in the Disney game that I'm playing right now that I play every single day on my iPad. They've been introduced into the game.
It's weird to me that Disney owns the Muppets still.
Yeah. Yep. I'll never forget the day that Jim Henson died, or the next day, because the day after the political cartoon, I'll never forget it. It was Mickey Mouse. It was a picture of Mickey Mouse and Kermit sitting on a rock looking at the ocean, and no words or anything. And Mickey Mouse just had his arm around Kermit. That was all it was. It was very powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, we kind of brought this right down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
I don't want to record anymore. Bye.
Great job, Dan.
I do like your USS Enterprise. Was that a blanket behind you?
It's a blanket, yes.
Very nice blanket. I have a towel that looks just like that. Beach towel.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Don't. Yeah, we were looking for throw blankets for the love seat, because I mean, that's largely for the dog.
Right.
We bought it at the beginning of lockdown because we realized if we're going to be working up here, Abby at the time needed a place to sort of chill out. So we bought that love seat.
Makes sense.
Through one of the online sites. And I bought a cheapo Star Trek blanket to put on there.
Well done.
And the blanket lining the seat is a Patriots blanket. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds there. No pun intended.
Ah, look at that. Throwing a little Star Trek into your conversation.
That would be if it was intended.
All right.
I said no pun intended.
Pun intended. Yeah.
Which typically, Dan, means that was not my intent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I would love to do a poll to see if people think that that's as stupid as I think it is.
They don't.
I'm just kidding. I just love giving you a hard time.
They don't.
No, it's gold. It's gold.
People love the NPR voice.
Yes.
It's funny because I started thinking about Vegas this week, which I think is 101 days away.
Around the corner.
I think. No, that's Trek Long Island. My bad.
Where's your handy dandy little
downstairs.
Countdowner? Oh, okay.
It's downstairs. That's just over. No, Trek Long Island is 101 days away. So Vegas is a little further out. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I got to start putting together a presentation for Stump the Geek. I'm like, no, I do not.
No, you don't.
Because it's
not this year.
The Stump this year.
That's right. Yep.
So I got to start putting together a template for you for Geek the Stump.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I remember committing to that on stage.
You did.
It's one of the few moments I was not inebriated in Vegas.
And you would think that would be something that you would have committed to when you were inebriated.
You can't even say it.
Inebriated.
Drunk.
Loaded.
Yeah. Blasted.
Blank-faced.
I got to tell you, last thing before we get to going. I know we're at 16 minutes now, and it makes as much sense as our Star Trek discussion. I am so sick to death of that stupid Dung Kings commercial.
Yeah.
So I walked into a Dunkin' Donuts today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And the menu boards are now all LCD screens.
Yeah.
Or LED screens, whatever. And one of them is dedicated to playing that 30-second commercial on a loop. And I know this because I stood there for 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And literally saw it 20 times.
Wow.
It's on mute, thankfully.
Yep.
But yeah.
I don't have any interest in trying that coffee at all.
No.
I'll stick with my regular flavors. I just no.
And you can get one with a skewer of munchkins.
Yep, like a martini. Yep. But that's good and healthy.
Talk about the shittiest martini.
Yep. Worse than mine.
Yeah. Well, no, let's not get crazy.
Come on now. That's my bread and butter. Oh, a bread and butter martini.
That sounds heinous.
Liver and onions martini? I talked about making like a turkey gravy martini joking around at Thanksgiving.
You still owe me a Charleston Chew martini before I move.
I do. And I actually think I saved a recipe, so yes.
Or you can make it in Long Island.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
And we can record the results.
All right. That's challenge accepted.
Oh, yeah, baby.
I don't have to pack anything for a flight that could break or in luggage or anything like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You can do that. Okay.
And of course, I'm flying up to Manchester to drive down to Long Island with you.
Oh, gee, thanks. That'll be a great trip.
It's my present to you.
Yeah. Well, wow, great. You never have to get me anything ever again because this is just the best.
The nice thing is you don't have to travel to Vegas with me.
Oh, believe me, that is the nice thing.
And I'll have the much quicker flight.
You will. That is true. That is true. But I think I get in before you. I leave several hours earlier.
You leave several hours earlier, yes. I actually think I have a direct flight.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Oh, yeah,
Jerk
baby.
Face. Yeah.
So I leave later and I arrive a little later.
Yeah.
But it's only because it's going to take you 8.5 hours to get there.
like a 3-hour layover in Chicago or something like that. Some stupid thing.
I can't wait for it to turn into an all-night trip.
I know. Thanks. Thank you for jinxing it.
You should add me to the room in case you get stuck in Chicago.
Nope. You're on your own. Bye. See? What goes around comes around. And it's coming around, going to hit you in the face, yo.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to be able to find a hotel room in a city filled with goddamn hotel rooms.
It's not going to be. So,
what?
Anyway, well, nothing.
Speak up, Bucktooth.
Wow, we're at 19 minutes. This is great.
I know. One of these days we have to do an all outtake episode.
That'd be awesome. I'm up for that.
I'm sure the Patreons would love it.
Sometimes
our listeners would listen to this and wonder what the hell was going on.
Sometimes our regular episodes are all outtakes, the entire thing. Just saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
We don't know intelligent conversation in there.
I'm calling it right now. Next time, all outtake.
Oh, I had something already prepped for the next time, though.
Oh.
Come on, man.
Let me look at that. Let me see how badly it sucks.
Good. I'm glad you prepare yourself and read the copy ahead of time.
I'm not the one who reads that part.
I know, but still, it'd be nice that you'd be, on the same page.
I'm not the one who reads that part.
He's looking at it. He's making a face, ladies and gentlemen. He's gritting his teeth now. He just passed out.
Oh, no, I'm going to call an audible when we get to that.
Oh, okay. Well, he's calling an audible. Okay, then.
So for Patreons, be prepared. We're going to go all outtake next episode.
What the hell is the album cover going to look like?
That's not my problem. You ready there? You ready there, Pork Fried?
All right. What? Pork Fried? What the hell?
Read the copy.
Speaking of Muppets. Trek Geeks is proud to have... No, I'm just kidding. I won't do it.
Wait, I want to do this like Mike Haddad. Trek Geeks is proud to have Fansets as our presenting sponsor. Sorry, Mike Haddad is a meteorologist here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Who sounds like Bullwinkle.
He does sound like Bullwinkle. I told Sue, I said, I'm going to try to do the beginning of the podcast as Kermit the Frog, but I'm probably not going to be able to because I'll be like under pressure and I'll screw it up. So I'm not going to do it. So you're welcome.
That's
yeah.
21 minutes.
Coconut.